Here we are.
There we are. Yep, there we are.
So do we need to start with our names again at the beginning?
Sure.
Sure. Roseanne Lloyd.
Elisa Swenson.
Melissa Hunt.
Okay. So, first question, I guess. What doctrine in Wilbur's heart drove him to advocate? And why is the doctrine of the family so important to have in your heart? Be passionate and persistent.
I thought the first doctrine that came to me was all men are created equal. He had a love for all mankind and that all men were children of God and all men deserved a chance of a good life. That was the first doctrine, or the main doctrine that came to my mind.
Yeah, same here. I feel like that was the core of why he was doing what he did, because he felt like nobody is better than anybody else simply because of who they are. Like,
right.
We're all equal in God's eyes, and so we should all be equal.
It seemed like he had an understanding a little bit more, as he was laying in the grass saying that he had found God.
Mm-hmm.
And I get names confused. Was that Alfred, the guy that wrote The Amazing Grace?
John.
Alfred Finney, or okay.
The preacher.
The preacher. Yes. There we go. That he had helped him to see God and to see, which kind of led him to see all the good that people were. Mm-hmm. Without that, I don't know if he would have gone down that path. So it was just, finding that the passion that he found with the preacher. And then I think if you don't have passion, then you can't be persistent or dedicated. Because you kind of have to have that drive that I think he found when he found God and found that, and that preacher helped him to show how awful slavery was, even though he had worked as this on the other side of it. I don't know if I'm making any sense.
Yeah. Well, and I think you hit like the point. The main point of the second part is that without this core belief in the equality of man and in God's creation of man, mm-hmm. like he couldn't have been passionate about this. He wouldn't have been as persistent as he was. I mean, you saw all of like the social persecution and like the health issues and all of the stuff that happened because he was so persistent in this cause. And I think without a deep understanding and having this doctrine in his heart, he couldn't have done all of that. And I think that's a lesson for us. Like, if we want to do this, do the things that we know that we need to do and that we're responsible to do, then we have to allow this doctrine to have the place in our lives and in our hearts that we need it to have, or we won't be able to be persistent and continue with what we need to do.
Yeah. So why is the doctrine of the family so important to have in our heart so that we can be passionate and persistent?
Well, that's what we're advocating for. That's what, I mean, yes, that's what everybody should be advocating for, but us especially, like, we're preparing ourselves to advocate in this. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what we want to do, and that's where we're aiming our effect on the world, I guess you can say.
Well, families are so important that everything kind of revolves around family.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It's the micro or whatever, where it's the bottom level, and then everything else can build from there. So if we can build that stronger family and advocate for that, then everything else can be easier to fall into place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that when we understand, truly understand, and it enters into our heart that the family is the key to the whole plan of salvation, and that without it, like Elder Oak said, there is no reason for mortal life. So, when that enters into our heart and we truly believe it, just like when he found God and that drive wouldn't leave him, when that enters into our heart, then that drive to advocate for families makes us passionate and persistent. And when we have that passion, we become persistent.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay.
Question 1.
Yeah. Question 1. Check.
Yay.
Okay, so question 2 then. How did Wilbur employ a theoretical approach to become a more effective advocate? Identify at least one thing in each system and be specific. Yeah, I'm trying to pull up my notes. So, one of the things that I noticed was at the microsystem level, there was one of the meetings that they were having. It wasn't like the first meeting of all of the advocates, but it was like the second larger meeting that they showed in the movie. And they were like, if we're going to do this, we have to start at square one. And he was like, we should throw flyers from the church buildings and, you know, talk to everyone we see. And I think that was one of the ways that he worked in the microsystem. I mean, they talk about it, so I assume that they then went out and did it. Actually show them doing it in the movie, but why talk about it in the movie if you're not actually going to do it? But like working in the community and working with individuals to get his message out was how he worked in the microsystem.
I noticed too, I had put it in there in the microsystem also about how well he treated his servants.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And just the people around his own home. And also, I thought that was funny that he had like animals roaming his house.
Yes.
A bird that can't fly.
Yeah, just a love for all things. And so that's quite an example to the way he just treated people on his own personal level.
Right. And in the microsystem, of course, there's the family. So when he got married, I mean, then he and his wife and his kids she helped him and encouraged him and supported him. Excuse me. And I thought it was interesting that he would go out and play cards with those that even opposed him. But he would go out and be in the community and talking to people on the street and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next level up, I guess, is mesosystem. So
Right. Yeah. Meso. Mm-hmm.
yeah. When I typed this this morning at like 2 a.m, I forgot the mesosystem. So I'm going to add mesosystem in there. So, okay, mesosystem.
For this one, I put when he had those people from the charities and that were coming to his house for food.
Yes, that's what I put.
Yeah.
He invited people from the community that were poor into his home.
That what they said, I think the person said that some weren't even worthy to be there, but they were there anyways. And he's like, okay, and his poor cooks were everywhere.
Yes.
And he started crying.
Right.
I'm having company for dinner.
And he had no clue. What was interesting is he had no clue that they were even there.
He was like, why is she upset? What happened?
Well, he's in your house and they're going, what
happened?
This opens his home up.
Yeah, and I also thought it was interesting how the servant came out and said, there's a beggar at your door, and you wanted me to always ask you. And he goes, well, feed him. You know, like, well, duh. Our home is open.
I was going to say, I think another interaction is that he was trying to get people all throughout the community, you know, religious people and friends of his and friends of friends. Like, he was trying to get everybody to interact with each other and to, I mean, okay, so like at the beginning of the movie, you see that with William Pitt. William Pitt, like, invites all of these different people to Wilberforce's house to, like, get him on their side, to get him to be their advocate. But that's an example of a mesosystem interaction. I mean, that's that's friends, that's community leaders, that's religious leaders, that's political activists. That was a whole range of people from different microsystems
Yeah.
interacting to
Yeah.
create something.
See what's the next one? Exosystem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously the exosystem is working in Parliament.
I know. I was going to say the only one I could think of was Parliament, and she said she had to have one. So that's I'm going. What else is there?
Well, and I just put just working in Parliament as a white man trying to change things for blacks. That's all I could.
Yeah.
Well, and the exosystem, the working in the exosystem kind of feeds into working in the macro system because he realized that he had to change what people believed. He couldn't just get them to vote differently. He had to affect their thoughts. Like when he took when he and I forget the other guy, but one of the other MPs, when they got together and they took all the MPs out on the boat into the estuary, and they were like, "Oh, and by the way, here's a slave ship, and you smell dead people."
Crazy.
Yes.
Like, but what he was doing, yeah, it was like a shock factor. But what he was doing is he was changing their basic beliefs about the slave trade.
Right.
So
yeah.
he used the exosystem to change the macro system.
Yeah, well, because you have to, sometimes you have to see it because it's their way of life, so they're just used to it. And that's what they use. You're just used to it. But when somebody says, "Look, you're right next to it, smell that," that's what they deal with, and it's like, "Oh, this isn't okay."
This is the slave trade. Smell it.
Right.
Yeah. So that was what I put for macro system, was trying to change the beliefs of society and the way that society viewed the trade.
Okay.
And I put the situation of the gambling when he was not okay, when the guy he was gambling with came in, that society thought it was fine that he could just bet a man's life when he didn't have any money left. And
Oh
that he
yeah.
stood up for that and was trying to change society and kind of stood up and walked away at that point.
Yeah.
So I put that, it talks about the macro system also has, the religion and stuff like that. So I put that he turned to his, the preacher friend, I think it's John.
Yeah, I think so.
The guy that was the monk, sort of, kind of.
I just kept referring him to as Annie's dad because he's, from
my friend was watching it with me and she goes, "Oh, that's from Annie. That's where I know him."
Well, I was watching with my husband, and he goes, "Oh, look, that's Dumbledore." And I was like, "Are you sure?" It's like Annie's dad. And then we look it up. He's like, "No, see, it's Dumbledore." And then, like, the next scene is Annie's dad. I'm like, ah!
Yeah.
Like, they're both in it.
Well, the old guy that speaks right at the very, very end, that's Dumbledore, because I'm going, where is that? I know that. Wait a minute.
I recognized him from. I'm like, this guy is so familiar. I don't know who he is, but I know him.
Yeah, he's the second Dumbledore.
Yeah, he's the second Dumbledore.
Now I know.
I happened to look away and just listen, and I went, wait. Know what that was. Okay, so he turned to his monk friend.
Yeah, Annie's dad.
Annie's dad, for help and support and ideas to help with to advocate. He also prayed for help, and economically he was in a position to help, and he was a political figure and had the power to change. So that's how I kind of tied in the macro system into what he did.
Okay. So.
And then the chrono system.
Oh yeah, I forgot chrono system too. I must have been tired.
So the chrono system is where all the change makes, right? That's the big changes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think.
So he got rid of the drugs that he was using so he could think clearly. People in Parliament changed positions. Some of them died, and so there were different people in position. They changed their strategy. on how they looked at it. Getting married changed his outlook on life. He realized that people were counting on him. When the man came back from Jamaica and told him about the mother and the girl and that he was the king, and that he would come save them, that was a change in his life, I think, where he's going, we got to do something.
So when I think of Chrono system changes in the movie, I think of at the beginning, like, you know, they didn't like the abolitionists, and then they did like the abolitionists, and then there was all the talk of revolution, and so they shied away from the abolitionists again, and then there was the change to the prime minister, and
Right.
the new prime minister voted neutral, and so that left the door wide open to finally passing the bill. So that was the big chrono system change that like I saw, like the more macro.
Mm-hmm.
You, Roseanne, did a great job on picking up on like the little like not micro system changes, but like the smaller picture changes, and then I just see the big picture change, which is like they didn't like slavery,
and they liked
slavery, then they didn't like slavery.
Right. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I just put about a few of the smaller changes, like she mentioned, just with changing of positions and strategies, and then I put overall he was persistent enough to change the system.
Yeah.
It took him a long time, and then it took even because we got kind of reading on it. It really didn't even happen for years after that, even where everything was done, but it's crazy. All this stuff you don't even know exists.
Go ahead.
It was just stuff I don't even know exists. Like, never heard of the guy, never even thought about England as using slaves before this movie.
Right. Neither did I. But here in America, it did the same thing. I mean, the slaves were freed, and how long did it take before they were actually felt free?
Mm-hmm.
Just because it was said in government didn't actually
go down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we covered that pretty well.
Okay, so then the next question. How did Wilbur and his fellow advocates do and share their research? What evidence did they provide to persuade those opposing or on the fence? I guess I'll start this one. So one of the things that I noticed that they did, first, he like talked to people that he considered experts. You know, like they got Equiano to tell his story and to publish the book, and they found out, from him, and they mentioned one of the other MPs that had been on a slave ship and had seen what it looked like. They went and they did the petition, so they talked to people about how they felt about this, and they got stories and facts, and they gave a face and a smell to slavery. Like they like did a lot of like looking into what slavery meant for Britain. So like they said that they gathered health records, they gathered ship manifests, they toured ships, they talked to people who've been there. That was like things that I noticed.
I had said the same things, and then I think I said everything the same things, and I said also about taking the people to see the slave ship in this part too.
Yeah, I put it here too. And they wrote books. Equiano wrote the book, but John also wrote his book at the end.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
And I also put that they went around the country, gathering, talking, and getting all those signatures, and then they presented it in Parliament by rolling it across the floor.
The dramatic effect. Yeah, that was great. Yeah, I have that too. That's
Yep.
I think that's all that's been said of mine.
I know. I'm going. That. Yep. Okay.
Well, that was one of the like really straightforward ones because it felt like
Uh-huh.
there wasn't a whole lot to say.
Yeah.
No,
Um,
not a lot of
I
extra
also put
thought.
that. I also put that he actually went into the slave boat and went down into it and saw Equiano took him into the slave boat.
yeah, firsthand experience, not just
Right. The
stories.
first-hand experience. Yeah.
Okay, so then the next question: how does the film portray the importance of working together as a group, and what has family advocacy group work taught you? Um, so the things that I noticed um, was that if it hadn't been for working together, it's possible that he never even would have embarked on this particular course. Like, it was a group effort from everybody. Like, at the beginning, they're like, oh, well, why are we here? We're here to talk to you. Well, why are you here?
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to see it to believe it. Um, it took a group effort to convince him, and they supported each other. You see him and William throughout the movie. Like, I guess technically they're both named William. You see him and Pitt throughout the movie, like, supporting each other in their cause, and I mean, there's a while where Pitt isn't, but in the end and in the beginning, they're both strengthening each other, and I think the group does that throughout the movie, keeping each other on task, keeping each other like um, focused and hopeful.
Yeah.
When
I
I
have
saw
more,
it
but I'll let.
too,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
I was just say I have more, but I'll let somebody else talk. I'm
I,
sorry.
I had put in there too about his wife about working with a group. It kind of spreads the word. So we're even when she was 14 and she stopped putting sugar in her tea to show her support. When you have a group, it kind of a broader connection to spread the word around rather than just one main person.
Yeah, a larger network.
Mm-hmm. Your network, that's a good word for it.
Yeah. I put in where they all came together when the guy came back from Jamaica and how they really worked together. It seemed like up to that point they were kind of doing their own thing. They were a group, but they were kind of doing their own thing. But when he talked about how they were going to cheat, they pulled together and pulled it off. Without that group, they could have never pulled off that feat.
I mentioned that too, that like working together as a group, they came up with new ideas that they hadn't tried before. They came up with something to do what they've been trying to do all along, and they couldn't figure out how to do. I'm sorry, there's a fly. They keep buzzing right in my face. But yeah, I noticed that too. So then,
But the rest of it, I pretty much, that the more their group grew, the more they accomplished. And like you said, they had more. You can come up with different ideas. They came up with different ideas as they would meet as a group.
um, and that was one of the things that I mentioned in the what is the family advocacy group work taught you. It's impressed me like this whole semester, just like um, just the wealth of ideas that we all have that where we contribute to like get things done in ways that we may not have thought about. I mentioned in my writing how at least one of us was always playing devil's advocate to like, oh, but have you thought about it like this? Have you thought of? And it wasn't always me.
Right.
I mean, it often was, but it was other people too. Like, have you thought about it like this? Well, what about this other thing? And working with a group, I feel like it really helps you to strengthen your overall ideas to like get this solid thing that is impenetrable. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I put that there's always someone there to cheer you on.
I wrote that too.
And that there's friends that understand you and know how you're feeling, their support. You're on the same page, and then great things happen.
I put it is interesting to see when you have, even though you're going for the same cause or the same point of view, how many different ideas and different points of view there are for one cause.
Right, yeah.
There's not just one right answer.
Yeah. Having different perspectives draws you out from what you already believe and what you already think is the only possible way to get anything done. And it makes you really think about what works and not just let's do this my way.
Helps you get out of trying to get out of the box, because you just get thinking the same thing, just you, but somebody else says it and you're going, wait, whoa, oh.
Or sometimes they can even just say it better. I'm not always the best with words, and somebody else could have a better analogy or a better way to say what I'm trying to get out.
Right.
Well, and we always we can fill in each other's weaknesses too. Mm-hmm. Melissa, I'm sure you're better at starting Hangouts now.
I am.
We're working with Denise and learning how to start Hangouts. I know that's not really an advocacy thing, but it's it illustrates the point.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was somewhere where you weren't strong that the rest of us were, and we help each other develop the talents and the skills that we have, and it's not just, oh, well, you're not good at that, so you just don't worry about that part and we'll just pick up the slack. It's we help each other to grow.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep. Okay. Number 5?
Yeah, so number 5 is, what parallels do you see between Wilbur and Captain Moroni and Alma 46? What is a Christian and professional family advocate, and how did Wilbur exemplify that? And how can you be effective and Christ-like against such loud and often degrading voices? So when I did this one, I actually thought about Captain Moroni and Richard Wilkins from A Sacred Duty, because I felt like they did a lot of things the same. There were 2 things specifically that I noticed, and one was that they both prayed for direction and for guidance and to do what the Lord would have them do. We remember that from the story, and then I was rereading Alma 46, and it says that after Captain Moroni had made the title of liberty, he fell to his face and prayed to the Lord. And the other thing that I noticed that both of them did was train of thought, where'd it go? Was to have the doctrine in their heart. They both, to their core, felt that what the Lord wanted was the right thing and was the way that things needed to be done. And Wilbur kind of did the prayer thing. We saw him start to pray outside his home. But I think what he did do, even though they didn't show prayer directly, is that he did keep going back to what the Lord wanted. He would visit his preacher friend to gain guidance, not just about being an advocate for against slavery, but to learn about the will of the Lord for him. And as far as having the doctrine in his heart, we've already talked about how Wilbur did that. That's why he was such a passionate advocate.
Mm-hmm.
And I also put in there just that they both stood for freedom. It didn't matter what others thought or what the odds were. It was important to them, and so they did what was necessary. And they also used so much courage, because it takes a lot of courage to go public and get your message and your cause known when it's against everything else. So I just said they also were courageous.
Mm-hmm.
I put that they both were, well, I used the word angry over the oppression of the people. Both of them were going, this is not right. Something needs to be done. They both went throughout the whole land gathering the people. And then the people took hope in what they were saying.
So then I guess the next question is, how can you be effective and Christ-like against such loud and degrading voices? And I think it's hard, especially when you're talking about like having integrity and standing up and standing for freedom and all of this. This is like very active stuff. It's not a passive activity.
Right, yeah.
It's very much like go and do and be out there and make changes and be aggressive, and which you can be aggressive without being confrontational.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we be effective and Christ-like when we're doing all of these things that are required to be an effective advocate?
So I put, you seek the Lord's help, you're respectful, you put religious ideas into secular words, you don't be afraid, you don't let fear overcome you, and you disagree without being disagreeable.
Okay.
I had a few of those, and then I also added the word persistence.
Yes.
We have to be determined and persistent and just keep going.
I think what you also have to do is keep in mind the larger picture. Keep in mind the eternal goals. Yeah, these voices are loud and degrading, and they make life hard, and they make things difficult and trying, and it would be so much easier to just stop. But I think when we remember what we're fighting to change, and when we remember the point and the importance of families, it makes it easier for us to remember to be Christ-like when we're remembering this is what the Lord wants.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very important.
Did we talk about what a Christian and professional advocate was?
Kinda.
Yeah, kind of, huh?
I don't think we defined it as such. I think we talked about the things that Wilbur and Captain Moroni do that we need to do.
Right, yeah.
So I think that kind of we answered both of those parts of the question at the same time, I think.
Perfect.
So I'm good with that if you guys are.
Okay.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. So Marcia Barlow spoke on persuasive speaking and writing. Did Wilbur and others exemplify any of Marcia's ideas, and how so?
I can start this one. I had said, let me see. I said that, first off, is Wilbur really researched the topic, down to even building that box in his kitchen. That scene just cracked me up.
Why are you hiding in the box until your servant left? Because he already thinks I'm crazy.
That just cracked me up. But that's really research, and to go to all the boats, and he really researched what he was doing. He knew what he was doing, and Marcia stated that we did need to do extensive research. Although she said he used Google, so, you know.
Well,
He obviously couldn't use Google, but he did what he could.
yeah.
He did research probably over his ability even at the time. He kind of went above and beyond. And then, let's see, she said to condense everything down and small to make the point come across is a wonderful talent and gift to strive for. And he did a great job with that, especially when they're in Parliament arguing in that. I mean, sometimes you'd have literally half a sentence to be able to get your thought out.
Oh,
So
right.
for him to be able to condense what he was doing into just real quick. So those are the things that I had pointed out.
I talked about using the story of me, them, and us, or what was it? Me, you, and us, or
Me, us, and now.
me, us, and now. So I talked about how he used, where is it? So he created like the story of us through the use of the petition. He was like, this isn't just me and my radical colleagues that want abolition. Like, this is something that everybody wants, or not everybody, but a large amount of people want. This is not just, this is us. This is all of us. So I pointed that out. What else did I put down? So like, I was trying to remember without rewatching her entire speech. I believe that she was talking about how you should use stories, right? Just like, just stories. And he used a lot of stories. I mean, they used the story of the Madagascar to get people to think about it like that. They used Equiano's story. They used stories that very first night in the in his dining room with the chains, like, oh well, this is what it goes here and this is what goes here. It's like a visual story. Yeah, those are the ones that I found.
Okay, the ones that I put down were how Equiano talked about the story of himself and his experience with the slave boats, and then he showed the slave boats to the Wilbur showed the slave boats to the people so that they could see what that was. So that was the story of us, and then he presented the change that needed to happen into Parliament, and also John, the preacher monk guy or whatever, told his story, and he actually wrote it down finally. But he told him his story. Then he helped Wilbur see how he would, how it would impact him, and then he opened his eyes so that he knew what he needed to do. Especially when he was there at the end when he was writing it, when he was blind, and he talked about how his eyes now saw.
Yeah.
Once I was blind, now I see. So that's what I put.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. So what role did the government policy and religious freedom play in the fight of the slave trade? And then we'll answer the other parts because that aren't particularly. They go together, but not really. So we'll start with that one.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll start.
Sorry, I'm trying to find my paper again.
Yeah, that's fine.
This one's not on the top of my head what I put. Sorry.
Well, that's fine. So I wrote that obviously the whole movie like focused around political activism. So he advocated in political settings for changes in policy backed by the government, because the government's what changes policy. So that was how I connected government and policy. He worked with the government to change the policy. And for religious freedom, I put that many of the people that were opposed to the slave trade did so on religious grounds. And you could see that the religious grounds for opposing slavery were not always taken seriously. I'm trying to think of like the exact terms, but there were scenes in Parliament where they're like, well, you and your, overzealous, what was the word, itinerant clergymen? Like, they're like, oh, these crazy clergymen that are just, imposing their beliefs on us are affecting us being wealthy. So it was like, we don't want you to believe in abolition, but also, really, you're going to do it on religious grounds. So I saw that as affecting that as well. Come on,
Dom. I kind of broke it down into the government policy and religious freedom. So for government, I put that the laws were made by a few of the people, and the people had really had no say. Even when they brought that big list of people, they just ignored that there were people that there were actually people that wanted to abolish slavery. Parliament didn't want to recognize that that was so, and they said that they represented the people, but they were looking out for themselves. In policy, Wilbur had people who were working with him and helping him set up the new policy. They made plans and set up goals and then took it to Parliament. They met often and assessed what was going right and what they needed to improve and change. The policy they were trying to put in place was for a long-term abolishment of slavery. And then for religious freedom, Elder Oaks said the most desirable condition for the effective exercise of God-given moral agency is the condition of maximum freedom and responsibility, the opposite of slavery or political oppression. So they couldn't be religiously free or have religious freedom until slavery was abolished. It seemed that Wilbur was not afraid to talk to God or seek religious counsel, but all needed to be free.
That's a great answer.
Yeah, great job. Wow. Definitely
You know,
not.
I feeling like my answer is really bad now.
I'm sorry.
No, you did really good. Mine is definitely not that long. I had just a condensed version of what you guys have said, and the only other thing I'd added was just that it took so many years. It wasn't fast changing. It was each step was just years and years.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the next question on this question set is, did you see their political system as being pro-family? Why or why not? I didn't see it as being pro-family.
I didn't either.
I saw it as being what is good for the people that are in charge, what is good for our pockets and the wealth of our country and the status of our country, and
they were so concerned about the plantation owners. I'm going, wow.
It was just very individualistic and not very family-centered.
Yeah, I had said self-centered, and they were just concerned with what directly affected them, and slavery benefited them.
Yeah.
And I can't even understand my own handwriting. What I wrote, not my handwriting, but I can't even read what I typed. Some of his I don't even know what I was saying.
Did you do yours at 2:30 in the morning too?
Yeah, it was Saturday night. It was Saturday night about 1 in the morning.
Oh, okay.
So Monday morning, because we watched the movie Sunday, so it would have been Monday morning at 1.
Oh,
I can't even read what I wrote, but it just that they it was just right in front of their face. That's all they could see.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So do you feel that Wilbur used his time on Earth well, and how do you see him showing the elements of consecration that Elder Christofferson spoke of?
I think he used his life very well, his time on Earth very well.
Mm-hmm. And I think we would probably all agree on that, right?
Yeah.
So then...
What elements?
Yeah, then I guess I'll talk a little bit about the elements. I saw him particularly living the elements of labor, service, and integrity.
Yep.
It may have just been because it was late, but I didn't really see the other two, or I wasn't able to make those connections. But
well, I put that he eventually appreciated his physical body because he stopped doing the drugs and took better care of himself because he knew he needed.
The drugs weren't just drugs; they were supposed to help with his pain.
Right. Yeah.
So it wasn't like he was just a random substance abuser.
No, and I caught that, but I'm going, but eventually he's going, this isn't, I need my mind clear to support my family and to do this, but yeah.
I had grabbed a quote from him, and he, to stick in this section, and it said, so he says, I mean self-discipline based on moral standards. Moral discipline is a consistent exercise of agency to choose the right because it's right, even when it's hard. It rejects a self-absorbed life in favor of developing character worthy of respect and true greatness through Christ-like service. So I thought that one kind of fit in because he, even though it was hard, he kind of rejected the self-absorbed life.
Yeah, I definitely don't think he was self-absorbed.
No.
Not at all.
With that hair. That big giant rabbit. That cracked me up.
Okay. So any other profound thoughts or personal insights from the movie that are related to child and family advocacy?
I put that he chose to do the hard right, as President Monson talked about in conference Sunday. He was defeated, scoffed at, and scorned even by his family, yet he kept going.
For me, what I noticed was that was the depth of action that this core belief took him to. You know, we hear all the time that we need to stand up in defense of the family and stand up in defense for our religion and our freedom. But as I was watching the movie, I kept thinking about how what he did is so much more than just defense. When I think of defense, I think of standing your ground and not giving an inch, and it's a little more passive. Whereas what Wilbur was doing was more offensive. It was active. It was pushing back. It wasn't just keeping them from getting ground. It was gaining ground of your own. And that was what stood out to me, was just that advocacy is more than just, no, sorry, you can't come this way. I'm not letting you through. It's pushing not just to keep bad changes out, but pushing for good changes.
That's good. I had some things that I kind of wanted to remember too was visual is helpful. In like all the visual things of the rug, or the thing that looked like the rug, he used a lot of visual things, and I think that can help with advocates because you notice all the memes and stuff that come out, especially with conference.
Right.
That just those quick little visual things really help. And then it kind of opened my eyes to just different cultures, and like advocating isn't a new concept. And it's just something I hadn't ever really thought about in the past, and the different things that people have had to advocate for. So that just kind of got me thinking.
Okay.
One other thing that stood out to me was what John, the preacher, told him about how change doesn't always come as a storm, but it a lot of times comes as a drop by drop that wears away a stone. And you don't always see it until it's worn it away. And sometimes that's how advocacy is. You don't think you're doing anything, and then pretty soon it's like, oh, maybe I did.
That's how life is.
That's how life is, yes.
Very true.
Okay, so what was your understanding of the doctrine of the family at the beginning of the semester, and how has it changed? So I put that, like, my understanding of the doctrine of the family itself hasn't changed all that much over the course of the semester, because I've already taken, like, I'm graduating, so I've taken, like, all of the family courses that there are, and I feel like I really understand the doctrine of the family and its importance in our existence here and in the eternities. Like, it is our reason for being here. But what I did feel like had changed was what my personal role is in the doctrine of the family. Before taking this class, even knowing what I did, I felt like as long as I lived what I knew, and as long as I, stood as an example, which I think is different than advocating. It's like like the step before advocating, just being an example. As long as I did what I knew what was right and maybe helped, my friends and my family to do what was right, then that was enough. Then I was doing what I needed to do. But through the course of this class, I've realized that it's so much more than that. That our role in the doctrine of the family is to bring that doctrine to everybody, to help everybody to see that and to help them understand it to the depths that we do. It's not just about, is my family going to make it? It's about, are all of the families going to make it? Which is a lot of work. And I see your face, Melissa. You're like, oh.
No, I'm laughing. My kid one of my sons, can I be the boss of my other son?
Oh.
Just go behave. I need a few more minutes. Hey, you know what? We were supposed to do trash today. We forgot. They did. Oh, yeah. You guys are awesome. I'll be out in a few minutes. Don't be the boss of anybody. I'll come handle in a minute. I'm like, what do you mean? Can I be the boss? Oh, my gosh.
I understand. My oldest son is always wanting to, quote unquote, try his brother's thing. Like, if it's ice cream, we went to get ice cream tonight for family night at Baskin Robbins. They have cheap ice cream on Tuesday nights.
Oh, uh-huh.
So my older son finished all of his ice cream, and then he just sat there staring at his younger brother. He was like, Desmond, can I try your ice cream? Can I try yours? No, Hiram, leave him alone. But I haven't tried his.
Oh, that's cute. Sorry. Got you off your train of thought.
Oh, no, I said what I was going to say, just that, that I feel like my understanding of what the doctrine is didn't change, but my understanding of my role because of that doctrine has changed.
That's kind of what I put, too. I'm like you. I'm like at the end of all the classes, so the doctrine was there, but I put that it went more from my head and knowing it into my heart and wanting to do something about it.
Yeah.
In essence. There's a big paragraph here, but yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the more eloquent and shortened way to say what I was trying to say.
I had the same thing because, yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. But I had put, too, though, that it's also just some confidence with having to do the speech and write the paper and all that kind of stuff, that give the confidence to do the research and confidence to share what I learned instead of just sitting around being quiet about it.
Yeah.
That's me. I'm just always quiet about it. Sounds like most of
That's totally mean. Yeah.
We're doing all right. Just don't rock the boat.
Yeah.
Don't say anything.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes people, even if they're on, as you talk to them, they get kind of pushy, and I just kind of agree, yeah, okay, whatever, but maybe I just need to speak up a little more.
Yeah.
So then, whoa, where'd it go? The thing changed. Go back. Okay, so then the final question says, picture your spouse and children, current or future, and write down some thoughts about how they will benefit from you taking this class. And I wrote that, since it's just me and my children, that taking this class and knowing how important it is to share that doctrine will mean that my children will come to know how important that doctrine is. Like, it's not just something that I know that I keep in my heart all the time, but it's something that I share with them and that I teach them and that I teach them to share with others. They will hopefully, and this is all hopefully, if I could be the best person I could be, which how many of us are that all the time, right?
Yeah.
That they would come to know that our role isn't just to look out for ourselves, but to look out for others and to teach them to talk to others and to encourage them to do the right and to come to the understanding that they themselves have.
And see, I thought this and the question above kind of went together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My answer is, it's kind of the same, and just more that kind of what you were saying, just being an example, and that if I'm more interested in looking into things and researching topics and kind of getting more vocal, because I used to be really vocal in foster care and did a lot with that, but I need to kind of broaden and not just be stuck under one aspect, but also just like the things that this class has opened my eyes like to bills and the way the government works, that I can kind of pass that on to them so that they can make a difference also. So in a way, it's kind of made me a little bit smarter in that. You always see that stuff, but when you learn about it, it seems to be more in your face. There's so many bills all the time, like going through everything. I'm like, where did these all come from? But I guess I just didn't really pay attention, like, in the news or the news feeds and that. And now I'm like, oh, there's bills all over the place.
And how many are like that little abolition thing that was snuck into that other bill?
Right. Yep. So it's just kind of, yeah, I just thought they kind of went together, and hopefully I can be a better person so my kids can be better people.
Yeah, that's. I think that I'm kind of like you guys. Just teaching my family the doctrine. My kids are all pretty much grown, but I can help them teach their kids, so my grandkids know the doctrine of the family. Bear my testimony of the family. I think this class has made me more aware of just exactly all the attacks that Satan is making and how he's doing the attacks, so that I'm a little bit more aware of going, wait, that's, I'm able to detect it a little better than I did before.
Yeah.
Well, like with the persuasive writing stuff, I'm like, oh, how's this article? How's their facts? Like I look into it a little bit different now.
Yeah.
Right.
I
Yeah.
didn't care about before.
Well, that's all the questions.
Super interesting.
So,
I'm not summarizing this.
no,
I don't think we have to.
Could you imagine how long that would take?
We all learned a lot. We all enjoyed the movie. We all made good connections, and we all participated.
That's right.
Complete.
It's my last homework assignment. Yay!
Yay! I'm so jealous.
Me too.
Oh, no, you have more?
Yeah.
I have so much more.
Oh, sad.
I've got my internship in 4 classes, so
that's all I have left, I think.
I've still got a portfolio.
Don't do it all in one semester.
Yeah.
No, I'm spreading it out. I don't do any summer either.
Yeah, it's too much. All the classes and the single mom and the internship and the driving, like 2 hours round trip to go to work.
Oh wow, that's a long way.
Like my internship's like an hour away, so I have to drive an hour and then drive back. So it's like 2 hours on top of all of my work hours. It's just don't do it all at once. That's my word of advice. Unless you don't like to sleep, in which case do it all at once because it doesn't matter anyway.
Oh gosh. All right.
Well, thank you guys for a great semester. I think I've hated group work because group work is horrible. But this group has been great. Like I look forward to these meetings each week.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it was like the uplift of the week. Okay, if we just make it till then, whew, we made it.
this is what all of those other meetings that I've ever been in should have been.
Yes.
I feel like we all really work together and we all really, bring something to the group. And that's important.
What was one of my complaints in the class discussion thing or whatever, the thing at the end, was why do we have to do extra discussion boards when we have these meetings? Because I'm learning a lot. We're having face-to-face contact. Why throw out all these other discussion boards?
Yeah. Well, and I feel bad because I haven't been really participating in the discussion boards because I don't have time. But like, I feel like I do pretty well because like we discuss all the
Right.
stuff together. So
Right. Get a lot more out of this. So if they're going to do this, keep it up and quit with the discussion boards because this is a lot better.
yeah, I think you learn. At least I learned a lot more from these than I have from like most of my discussion boards ever in any of my classes.
This is kind of what they want with the discussion board, but it doesn't turn out.
No.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. And if you're like me, you get your quota in and then you forget to look at it again. And
Oh, I don't. Yeah. No.
So, she's going to be watching this and she'll come back and comment.
say, shut it up.
No. Oh, well, yeah.
From us. It's all right. I put it all in my complaint. It's all in there.
Well, no, but I mean, this is like good feedback. I mean,
Yeah.
basically, we like these hangouts. You should keep them in the future. We're not really sure of the worth of the discussion board.
So,
Right. Right.
now, in my theories class, there's a discussion board that, like, the teacher puts information or you ask questions on, kind of our teacher page one, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And that one was so informative. People would have talks, and then it's the ones that are like, hey, answer all these questions. It's just an assignment. Just have me do an assignment and turn it into the teacher.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and take the live thing off that way. This is also recorded.